Coming up on this Thursday edition of Daybreak, the South Korean military is maintaining a high level of vigilance following the apparent ousting of Jang Song-thaek, the uncle and de facto deputy of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. In candid face-to-face talks, US Vice President Joe Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping traded arguments Wednesday over China's contentious new air defense zone. Biden is due in Seoul later today. First, the secretariat of the United Nations Green Climate Fund, the single largest source of financing for global efforts to fight climate change, opens in Korea's global city of Songdo. Daybreak begins now.
Thank you for being with us. This is Daybreak on Thursday, November 5th. Live from Seoul, I'm Kim Hyun-ji. We begin with South Korea's response to the news of the dismissal of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's uncle, Jang Song-thaek. While attention is shifting to what happens now, Seoul is preparing for possible provocations. Hwang Sung-hee reports.
As soon as reports surfaced of Jang Song-thaek's ousting, the South Korean government began preparing against possible provocations by North Korea. At a meeting of top military commanders on Wednesday, Defense Minister Kim Kwon-jin noted the possibility of increased instability in North Korea following the political shakeup and warned that this could lead to provocations targeting the South. The top military commander ordered South Korean troops to maintain a level of high vigilance. In the past, Pyongyang has escalated inter-Korean tensions as a means of maintaining internal unity. If that's the case this time around, a fourth nuclear test or missile launch could be in the cards. On Tuesday, Seoul's National Intelligence Service said Chang had been purged and two of his close confidants executed. As North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's uncle, Chang practically served as the guardian of the young and inexperienced dictator and was known as the power behind the throne, while holding multiple high-ranking positions. While the ousting has not been officially confirmed, South Korean Unification Minister Ryu Gil-jae told lawmakers Wednesday that Chang had most likely been removed from his posts, pointing to an internal power struggle as one of the key reasons. The minister, however, said that Chang and his wife Kim Kyung-hee appear to be safe. Experts see Chang's dismissal as the last phase of the young leader's power consolidation, saying that Kim has removed all of the old guard that had been close to his father and is now solidifying his own inner group. They say a complete removal of Chang and his aides may carry North Korea further away from successful economic reform, one of Kim's key policy goals, since Chang is more aware of market forces than his nephew. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
A day after reports of Jang Song-thaek's removal from power surfaced, North Korea's official newspaper published a piece calling for absolute allegiance to North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. The Nodong Shinmun report did not mention Chang or his fate, but did say that any individual who stands against Kim Jong-un and the nation's revolutionary principles will be punished. China says it has received no news of Chang's dismissal. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Hong Lei did tell reporters, though, that the government is keeping a close eye on the related reports. In what's being seen as a drive by Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe to bolster Japan's defense posture, the country has launched a U.S.-style National Security Council. The council, headed by Abe and attended by 3 other foreign and defense ministers, met for the first time on Wednesday, where they discussed how to cope with China's declaration of its new air zone, as well as a reported dismissal of North Korea's second-in-command, Jang Song-thaek. While little is known about the whereabouts of Chang, Japanese broadcaster TBS, citing a radio station run by North Korean defectors in South Korea, reported that Chang was detained by the country's military on November 30th. U.S. Vice President Joe Biden is due to arrive in Seoul later on this Thursday for a 3-day visit after wrapping up talks with Chinese leaders in Beijing. Biden's visit comes at a tense moment for the U.S. and China, who are at odds over Beijing's newly established air defense zone. In talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping Wednesday, U.S. officials say Biden expressed concerns about Beijing's unilateral air defense zone and told President Xi that the U.S. does not recognize it. In response, Xi argued that the disputed East China Sea islands covered by the zone have long been sovereign Chinese territory. He also complained that the U.S., Korea, and Japan refused to acknowledge the claim. The officials added that Biden got Washington's point across about maintaining peace, but said the ball is now in China's court. The World Bank on Wednesday opened its first local Korean office in the Songdo International Business District of Incheon. During the opening ceremony, World Bank President Kim emphasized that collaboration between the Korean government and the new office is needed to end extreme poverty and build shared prosperity. Korean Finance Minister Hyun Oh-seok expressed hope that the new office would help spread Korea's expertise in economic development policy to developing nations. Well, staying in Songdo, Korea is now home to the United Nations Green Climate Fund, the single largest source of financing for global efforts to fight climate change. Starting from the year 2020, the fund is expected to mobilize $100 billion a year. Our Hwang Ji-hye reports on the opening of the largest UN organization to be based in Korea.
The headquarters of the United Nations Green Climate Fund has opened to much fanfare about a year after Korea was chosen as the host country for the world's single biggest source of financing, the fight against climate change. The opening ceremony was held on Wednesday at the headquarters in the Songdo International Business District of Incheon, just west of the capital, Seoul.
The Republic of Korea offers a wealth of lessons about successful, sustained growth paired with a strong shift towards creative economy that encourages lower emissions and greater resilience. I could not imagine a better place for the Green Climate Fund to call home.
The Green Climate Fund, launched in 2010, focuses on supporting developing countries and tackling global warming and other problems related to climate change. The fund is expected to mobilize $100 billion a year in climate finance starting from the year 2020. The president of the World Bank says Korea's selection to host the headquarters underlines its heightened status on the international stage.
There were many countries that desperately wanted to have the GCF based in their country. And the fact that Korea won that competition is a huge acknowledgement of the importance of the Republic of Korea in the world today.
In support of the global cause, Korea has pledged $1 million every year until 2019 in operation costs and an additional $1.4 million for office supplies. For the next 6 months, the Green Climate Fund will finalize the rules and procedures for receiving public and private funds to address issues regarding climate change. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News.
President Park Geun-hye, who was also in attendance at the opening ceremony of the UN Green Climate Fund, used the opportunity to call for concerted international efforts to fight global warming. Our presidential office correspondent Oh Jin-ju reports.
President Park pledged to create an innovative model for economic growth that uses the challenge of climate change as an opportunity to create new values, new markets, and new jobs. Speaking at the opening ceremony of the Green Climate Fund on Wednesday, she said the Korean government will prioritize solutions to climate change as a key part of its push for a creative economy.
에너지 관리 시스템, 신재생 에너지, 탄소 포집 저장 등 기후변화 대응을 위한 기술 개발 투자를 확대하고 관련 산업 발전과 시장 창출을 가속화해 갈 것입니다.
President Park said addressing climate change is a task for the whole world and that no single country or organization can do it alone. She emphasized that advanced nations must make an effort to provide financial support to developing countries in countering climate change.
녹색 기후 기금은 이러한 도전에 대응하기 위한 인류의 노력과 개도국에 대한 특별한 지원이 필요하다는 국제사회의 공감대를 바탕으로 탄생했습니다.
The president went on to say that the new UN organization represents a crucial turning point in international efforts to counter the enormous challenge that climate change presents. President Park vowed to share the appropriate technologies in this field with developing nations, which they can use and develop even on a small budget. She also promised that the Korean government will do its best to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 30% by the year 2020. Oh Jin-ju, Arirang News.
If you want the latest news from Korea and around the world.
Return to the negotiations. President Park Geun-hye plans, given the current circumstances.
On your way to work or at home.
Ministry. The legislature will convene a.
Tune into Daybreak on Arirang TV.
Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said Tuesday.
Shifting gears to domestic politics, Korea's two rival parties got back to business at the National Assembly on Wednesday, resuming long-stalled deliberations on next year's budget and other key bills. Kim Jong-un has more.
The ruling Saenuri Party and main opposition Democratic Party held a general meeting on Wednesday to move ahead with resuming parliamentary business.
We plan to go forward in settling next year's budget and resolving various pending bills that are on the table as soon as possible.
The meeting comes as the leaders of both rival parties compromised Tuesday on various contentious issues, such as launching a legislative committee on reforming the National Intelligence Service.
We were able to come to an agreement on how to run the committee for reforming the state spy agency. It was a major step forward.
The committee will devise tougher measures designed to prevent NIS agents from intervening in politics and find ways to enhance the intelligence agency's ability to deal with cyber terrorism. It will consist of an equal number of lawmakers from both parties and will be chaired by a Democratic Party leader. The lawmakers also agreed to set up a political reform committee to be led by a Saenuri Party lawmaker that will set new rules for local elections. The party leaders said they will pass bills on the two special committees on Thursday. They also agreed to return to business as usual in the National Assembly, starting with deliberations on the 2014 budget with the hope of getting it and other pending bills passed by the end of the year. The main opposition party boycotted all parliamentary sessions starting last week due to bitter bipartisan wrangling centered primarily around the NIS allegations. Kim Jong-un, Arirang News.
Now that the National Assembly is up and running again, hopes are rising that lawmakers will pass economy-related bills that will have a direct impact on improving the livelihoods of the people. But as our Kim Ji-yeon reports, pending legislation still faces a tough road ahead.
With lawmakers having spent months wrangling over how to deal with allegations that state agencies interfered in last year's presidential election, there are more than 100 bills pending in the National Assembly. 5 of the bills that are up for urgent review are aimed at boosting the nation's real estate market by removing restrictions on the construction of new houses and high-rise apartment buildings and allowing tax breaks for real estate buyers or sellers. The government has prepared measures to stimulate the housing markets at least 3 times this year and has blamed gridlock in the legislature for the sluggishness of the markets. Finance Minister Hyun Woo-seok said earlier this week that the National Assembly should place emphasis on the bills that seek to lend support to sets of housing policies that were introduced earlier this year. Revitalizing the nation's faltering housing market has been a major focus for economic policymakers of the years, as 70% of assets held by Korean households are in real estate. Other economy-related bills that need to be passed in Parliament are concerned with promoting investment. This includes a bill that would promote foreign investment of more than $2.2 billion and provide guidelines for the development of the service sector. The pending bills in the National Assembly face a long road ahead. The main opposition Democratic Party addressed concerns that the bills would lead to budget constraints for municipal governments and said supporters of the legislation should first come up with more sources of revenue, since many of the bills propose tax cuts. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Korea has been blanketed by a layer of dusty particles from China over the last couple of days. But with the toxic particles blowing westward across the Pacific, even the United States is calling on Beijing to get its emissions under control. Song Ji-sun reports.
It's hard to get a clear glimpse of major landmarks in Seoul, even at noon. What's weighing down the atmosphere is a cloud of smoke and toxic dust.
We came here to hike. We came prepared because we saw the dust alert on the news, and we could tell the difference between the air at home and the smog up here.
Particulate dust level in capital Seoul reached nearly 150 micrograms per cubic meter on Wednesday, nearly triple the amount observed on a normal day. That's well beyond the precautionary level of 120 micrograms per cubic meter. It's also more than 5 times the level recommended by the World Health Organization, which has a standard of 25 micrograms per cubic meter. Health experts advise wearing a mask with a dust filter and avoiding being outdoors at dawn when dust levels are at their peak.
The Korean peninsula will continue to be under the influence of dust and air pollutants coming from China until Thursday.
Over in Beijing, dust levels are hovering at roughly 200 to 300 micrograms per cubic meter. And experts believe that toxic dust from China accounts for about 40% of the dust in Korea's atmosphere. Washington is also urging Beijing to curb its carbon emissions. Ahead of our visit to China next week, Environmental Protection Agency Chief Gina McCarthy said the pollution emanating from China is now reaching the west coast of the United States. McCarthy added that the world's 2 largest carbon emitters should work together and said Washington would share with Beijing the lessons it has learned on lowering emissions. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
The driver of the train that derailed in New York City last weekend, killing 4 people, has told federal investigators that he zoned out shortly before the crash. The driver's labor union says William Rockefeller only realized he had nodded off 5 seconds before the train came off the tracks. The 7-car train was by then already traveling at 3 times the speed limit in the curved section of the track where the crash happened. The National Transportation Safety Board says its investigations are still ongoing and it'll be weeks, if not months, before they discover the exact cause of Sunday's crash.
And a good Thursday morning to you all as we kick things off in the KLeague Classic. Now on Sunday, when the Pohang Steelers won their league title, thanks to a last-minute goal from Kim Won-il, the Ulsan Hyundai Tigers fans were, well, shocked to say the least. Now, they're speechless after manager Kim Jong-un resigned from his position. Now on Wednesday, manager Kim stated that he will step down as the head coach of Ulsan, opting not to sign an extension. He added that he wants to take responsibility for his team failing to win another league title this season, ending his 5 years with the team. Manager Kim Jong-un has long been regarded as one of the best managers in the league as he led Ulsan to an AFC Champions League title in 2012 and earned the AFC Manager of the Year award that year as well. And staying in the league, the battle for who gets to return to the KLeague Classic next season took place last night as Hangju's Hangmu, the military team, took on Gangwon FC in the first leg of the playoff match. With that said, let's take a look at the highlights. Of course, going into the match here, both teams neck and neck throughout the first 25 minutes of the match. By the 29th minute, it's Lee Sang-hyuk of Sangju who sends one past the goalkeeper as Sangju takes a 1-0 lead. Stays that way going to the second half of the match until Lee Seung-hyun in the 71st minute. Let's make that 2-0 Sangju. Gangwon FC's defense struggling in the match, and just 6 minutes later, it's deja vu all over again as Lee Seung-hyun finds the back of the net once again, and it's 3-0 Sangju. But hold on, why score 3 times when you can make it 4-0? 89th minute, a brilliant goal. Lee Sang-hyuk once again, his second goal of the night, and it's 4-0. 90th minute, right before the whistle blows, Choi Seung-hin with the only goal for the night for Gangwon as Sangju gets closer to the returning to the KLeague Classic with a 4-1 victory. And with that, shifting over to baseball, where the Hanshin Tigers of the NPB announced their newest closer for the 2014 season as Oh Seung-hwan was introduced to the media. The 31-year-old closer was introduced as the newest member of the Hanshin Tigers as the team decided to hold the first press conference in Seoul. Oh, who holds the record for the most saves in the KBO, stated that he'll become Japan's best closer, adding that he'll do all he can to help the team. Now, the former Samsung Lions closer will be introduced to the Japanese media for the first time on the 12th of this month. And moving on to some Wednesday night's KBL action, the Incheon Itilan Elephants were able to cruise past the Changwon LG Sakers 76-62 as the Seoul SK Knights took on the Goyang Orions as well. So with that said, let's take a look at the highlights. Of course, going into the game here, first quarter of the game, Aaron Haynes leading the way for SK as he scores 13 of SK's 20 points in the quarter to take a 20-13 lead after the first quarter. Second quarter, it's Chun Tae-pung leading the way for the Orions as the Orions cut the deficit to 34-33 going into halftime. The third quarter comes along and it's Aaron Haynes once again scoring 11 points in the quarter and finishing the game with 34 points and 15 rebounds, becoming the 5th foreigner to score 5,000 points in the KBL. Meanwhile, a close game all around, but thanks to Aaron Haynes, the Seoul SK Knights take this game 80-75. And now finishing things off with some Wednesday night's VLeague action as GS Caltex dominates Daejeon KGC in straight sets, 3-0 over on the women's side. Meanwhile, a huge matchup over on the men's side as the first place Samsung Blue Fangs took on the second place Uri Card. Now, surprisingly, in the first set, Uri Card struggles to defend Samsung's offense as Samsung easily takes the first set 25-18. Second sets, both teams neck and neck this time, but thanks to Ko Hee-jin's timely blocking, Samsung takes the second set 27-25. Uri Card never recovers after being down 2-0 as Leo Martinez puts up 28 attack points with Lee Sung-yu adding 4 blocks as Samsung Hwanje Blue Fangs take this game in straight sets 3-0. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good morning, I'm Lee Ji-hyun with your latest weather forecast. Well, yesterday, the level of fine dust particles hit a record high in most regions, and those toxic smog from China will continue to sweep the nation today. So please take extra care of your health by washing your hands frequently. Now, today's weather should be similar to yesterday, with highs hovering at about 13 in the southern provinces and near 10 in the central region. But right now, we are waking up to a few patches of clouds here and there, but more clouds will be building into the nation as we go through the day, so the whole nation can expect partly sunny skies today. Well, we will have the warm stretch for a few more days, but morning lows should be dropping down to negative side as early as Friday, and another cold snap will return early next week. But now, here are the readings for today. The morning low in Seoul is starting out at 4, which is pretty mild, but afternoon highs will peak to 9, and Daegu and Gwangju will climb into 12, and Busan will hit 15 later on. Now let's see how other regions are looking. It looks like Jeju will enjoy a mild day with highs reaching to 16 in the afternoon. Daejeon and Dokdo will reach at 11 and 12, while Mount Kumgang stays in the chilly side. Now that's all for Korea, and here's the global forecast for viewers around the world. That's all for me at this hour. Don't forget to wear a face mask before heading out today, and hope you have a wonderful day.
That wraps up this edition of Daybreak. Stay tuned to Arirang for more of the day's latest. Thank you for watching.